As everyone knows, there is the stage being set right now for a hotly contested battle for the Republican nomination for the United States Senate for the seat that Herb Kohl is vacating. Former Governor Tommy Thompson, the most probably famous Republican in the state of Wisconsin in the last 50 years, has made it clear he is interested in running for the seat. A lot of people have raised concerns about that, questioning whether or not Tommy Thompson is the right kind of Republican for the era that we're in. And I'm one of those people who's raised that question. Right now, we're going to have an opportunity to confront that very question as I'm joined by the former governor of Wisconsin, Tommy Thompson. Governor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. I haven't talked to you in a while because you've been off doing other things. Before we get into some of the concerns that people have,
sure.
My first question for you is, after all these years and all that you've done, why do you want this?
Mark, that's an interesting question, and let me respond straightforward. The country that you and I love and hold so highly and respect so much is in deep trouble. The country is not moving forward. It doesn't have enough jobs, not enough innovation. The entitlement programs are bankrupting our country. And I really sincerely believe that I am the best candidate on the Republican side to bring innovation, bring development, and all you have to do is look at my record. While I was governor, we created 780,000 jobs. I cut taxes 91 times. At that time, there were 3 entitlements: welfare, Medicare, and Social Security. I led and was the first one that stood up and said, we're going to do something about welfare reform. And welfare reform is no longer an entitlement. I changed that from governorship of Wisconsin to a national program. I cut taxes 91 times. I saved the taxpayers in Wisconsin $16.4 billion. And if you remember when I took over, the state of Wisconsin was ridiculed by the governor of Illinois and other people about taxes too high, regulations too high. He even put signs up on the border. We changed all that.
There's no denying that. And one of the problems I have with some of the people who've criticized your entry into this is that they are mischaracterizing your tenure as governor, which was truly a glory era in Wisconsin. People forget what you inherited from Governor Earl and what the state was like in the mid-'80s. All of that, I think, can be granted you. The questions people have, I think, deal with where you are right now. You are telling us that you believe you're the kind of person that can solve the entitlement problem rather than trying to preserve the entitlement structure that we have in place now. Is that your message?
Absolutely. I used to be, when I was first running as governor, people said he's too conservative to be governor. Now people are saying, well, he's not conservative enough.
Well, things have but things have changed. The conservative movement's changed. The Republican Party has changed. And I think part of what's changed it is that the last 3 years of this president, he's moved us so far to the left that it's created this revolution on the right, demanding that we pull even farther back to the right. You know, the excessive spending that we've had over the last 3 years has made the deficit problem far worse than it was only 3 years ago. The entitlements are getting worse, and now the potential of health care creates another. So I think that point that, well, they're saying that maybe you're not conservative enough, isn't that a fair challenge to make, given that the times might require a more conservative approach?
No, I disagree with you, Mark. I think you want somebody that can lead, that can come up with innovative solutions. My whole career is bringing conservative principles to the forefront into government, whether it be school choice, whether it was cutting taxes, whether it was welfare reform, whether it was taking the bad guys off the streets. I'm the one, as the conservative governor, who led this country on many of these topics. No other governor would have the courage at that time to come up with school choice. Nobody came up with welfare reform. Everybody says, oh, don't do that, Tommy. We'll get in trouble if you do that. I stood up and took the conservative principles, the same way I would do in Washington if I got elected as senator from the great state of Wisconsin.
Well, and I think one of the other things that can be said to your credit is that some of those initiatives, including welfare reform and school choice, you got through a Democratic legislature, so you had to push it through and actually work with them. And right now, the concern that all of us have is that we can't fathom a Democratic Senate, if they keep control of the Senate, making any reform at all. They just seem intransigent and ignoring the problem.
That is the second reason that I want to run, and that is because we cannot accomplish what we need to accomplish in America with the Senate controlled by the Democrats. I believe, based upon my record, based upon all that I have done, that I am the best candidate to carry the state as a Republican. And as our friend William Buckley said, support the conservative that can win. I am the conservative that can win this state. Take over control of the United States Senate, which you have to do in order to accomplish what needs to be done in America to get America moving again, and deprive President Obama his chance to get reelected. The only way he can get reelected is carry the state of Wisconsin. You want the strongest candidate, the strongest Republican, in order to carry the Senate and deprive Obama a second term as president. I believe strongly, passionately, that I'm that candidate, Mark.
Let's address the health care question.
Sure.
The Club for Growth has alleged that you were a supporter of Obamacare. A check of the record indicates that you did indeed disassociate yourself from Obamacare once it became clear what the plan would look like. On the other hand, you certainly went on record as supporting universal health care and a government role to facilitate that, didn't you?
No, I never supported universal health care. I've always supported market-based solutions to health care. And it didn't become Obamacare until it came out of the Finance Committee, at which time I had already said I would not support it because it had skewed so far to the left. I support Republican ideas such as wellness, such as prevention, such as doing something with chronic illnesses, such as allowing for market exchanges, for allowing insurance companies to sell insurance across the borders. Republican principles that I helped formulate when I was secretary and also when I was chairman of the Rules Committee and also the Platform Committee for the National Republican Convention. These are ideas that I fostered and ideas that Republicans still are endorsing and trying to bring forward. I believe, as the senator from Wisconsin, we have a chance then to take some of my ideas that are market-based and not universal health, but market-based ideas to allow people to have the best opportunity to get health insurance at a competitive rate.
You issued a statement back in November of 2009. This is during the Obama presidency with former Congressman Dick Gephardt, in which you encouraged the Democrats and the Republicans to pass a bipartisan bill at that time. Bipartisan implies some of what the Democrats were looking for. You did issue that statement.
I issued that statement, but I also issued in the same statement, I said, there are a lot of things in this bill that I cannot support. I was encouraging, not that bill, I was encouraging the Democrats to meet with the Republicans and the Republicans to meet with the Democrats to come up with a market-based health insurance program on wellness, prevention, allowing for insurance to be sold across state lines, allowing for more, better, innovative ideas on Medicaid, which I wrote a paper on, and I've also issued a Medicaid reform pamphlet that I can send you that really deals with the question of Medicaid.
I don't think anyone would deny that in your experience at HHS under President Bush, where this was part of the issues that you were involved in, that you've got a command of the facts when it comes to this. The concern that some have is whether or not we're going to deal with this obvious crisis we have. Healthcare is getting more and more expensive, and we have a very, very hard time coming up with a way for people, even in the private sector, to pay for it. The question is, can we solve this? Can we cover the uninsured, and can we make coverage more affordable for small businesses, but also lessen the role of government? Do you believe you can get government out of this and still address that problem of getting access to people who need it?
I believe I am the best person to accomplish that. That sounds egotistical, but I've got the experience of running the largest department in the federal government, Department of Health and Human Services. And I've got the experience of knowing the fact that 80% of the cost of health care goes to chronic illnesses, things that individuals can stop and change. The cost of regulation that's driving up insurance companies to raise their premiums, not allowing the market to work, allowing competitors and market-based insurance companies to sell their product without the rules and regulations. To allow this to take place and to allow for a place like Medicaid to set up a position where Medicaid could also buy health insurance on a voucher system for those individuals that are under 135% of poverty. These are innovative ideas that do not allow the government to control health care, which I despise and have avoided and really tried to prevent. It's the ideas of putting the market back into control of health care and insurance. Then and only then will you allow individuals to be able to afford health care and allow insurance companies to sell it and allow employers to sponsor it. Right now, there are only 60 to 61% of employers offering health insurance. Why? It has become too expensive. Take away the rules and the regulations, allow for higher deducts, and do not start with $1 coverage, and you're going to be able to allow insurance companies to foster plans that are going to become more competitive.
And that's the opposite of what Obamacare does. Obamacare is one size fits all, and it's going to get companies to drop it, which is why I guess, have that hang-up about what it was that you were encouraging on a bipartisan basis, because I don't think at any point were we ever moving in the in 2009, we were not moving in the direction that you described, which is certainly a direction that I think most people listening to me support now.
But those are my ideas. Those
Right.
are my ideas that I have been advocating when I was secretary, when I was governor, Mark. And these are the ideas that I would take to Washington. And who better to formulate these ideas than somebody that studied it, worked with it, and has knowledge of where all of the kind of bodies are buried in the health insurance regulation field.
If anybody, as if he doesn't need any introduction, if anybody is wondering who it is we're talking to here, it's former Governor Tommy Thompson, who is clearly in campaign mode here. You're certainly energized again. Let me ask you this: what do you think of Paul Ryan's ideas, his blueprint on reforming the entitlements of Social Security and Medicare?
Paul Ryan is the first individual, Mark, that's had the courage to touch the third rail of politics. Just like when I was governor, to touch the rail of welfare reform, everybody said no. Everybody says, don't touch it, Mark, or Paul, you'll get in trouble. And he has the courage to stand up and offer solutions. Now, some of his solutions are very good. And some, you're going to have to tweak a little bit, and some you're going to have to change. Like, instead of cutting it off completely at age 55, give people an option. Do you want to continue in a failed program, or do you want to continue allowing for the purchase of your own private health insurance?
So you would suggest that on Medicare
that can work and help improve Paul's position, but give him credit. He led, and everybody should be thankful that Paul Ryan has got the courage and the intelligence to stand up and lead.
So your position is that you would offer people the opportunity, those 55 and under, when they get to Medicare age, that they would have the option of continuing on the government system or switching over to a private system. Am I stating what you said correctly?
Yes.
And on the cost, on his proposals on Social Security and dealing with that, your thoughts on the Ryan plan there?
Social Security is not a problem, Mark, as much as people try and make it out. Social Security can be handled easily. Social Security, Medicare is where the problems are. Just to give you some idea, the unfunded liabilities of Medicare are going to be somewhere between $38 and $67 trillion over the course of the next 75 years.
It's a staggering number. You're right.
And when you look at the fact that gross national product in the United States is less than $15 trillion, you see it cannot succeed. And so Medicare is going bankrupt. Medicare is going to be taking about 16% of all funding in the next 25 years. And it's just going to drive us into bankruptcy in America. So what you have to do is you have to fix Medicare. Social Security, you can change the inflation, which is part of the problem. You can possibly, do something about making it more neutral as far as revenue is concerned. There's so many things with Social Security. What I'm telling you, Social Security is small compared to Medicare.
To the time bomb of Medicare.
That's why somebody like me that understands the system would be the best person to send to Washington to help fix it.
When I think a lot of us in Wisconsin think of Tommy Thompson, they think of a guy that inherited a broken state in which we had a bad climate for business, and you built it up, and we turned our state into something. But the mode that the nation appears to be in right now is one of ratcheting back instead of doing all of this building. And they wonder whether or not you can be somebody who's willing to pull government back, whereas in the past your image was one of making the state and build. In other words, you were a builder, and we might now be in a dismantling period.
There's no question I was a builder, but times right now, require a different type of leader, but one that is knowledgeable about the issues, one that can really make the changes and still allow for government to operate and the system to work, but also at a smaller rate. And you got to also remember, Mark, and I think you mentioned it, that I did all of this while I was governor when the Democrats were in control of both houses of the legislature. I did not have a Republican-controlled legislature. I had a democratically controlled legislature when I cut taxes, when I started welfare reform, when I started changing the system. That would argue very much that I am the candidate that can bring change in America, just like I did in the state of Wisconsin. I have a record to stand on, a record that I'm very proud of.
There's another record in Wisconsin. It's very, very controversial right now, and that's what Governor Walker has pushed through the legislature. What are your thoughts on the Walker reforms, and do you support them?
You've got to support Scott Walker, because just like when I inherited from the Democrats, the state was going in the wrong direction. After Scott Walker got elected, Jim Doyle, in the last 8 years, has driven the taxpayers up as far as taxes are concerned, regulations, and has really made Wisconsin sort of a place where it's hard to do business. And Scott Walker came in with the same philosophy that I did when I became governor, and you've got to give him credit. Now, you can argue about this or that, but I give the governor great credit, because there's only one person that's at the end of the day has got to make that decision, yes or no. The governor has made those decisions, and we have to support him. And I think you're already seeing the kind of changes that the people are responding to. I think there's a more fertile climate for jobs in Wisconsin. I think there's a feeling, that we've changed direction.
You don't think he went too far then?
What?
You don't think he went too far?
No, but every governor would have probably done things a little bit differently, but overall, you got to give him credit, and I do.
I've got two last questions.
Yes.
There are obviously a lot of people in my audience who are enamored of Marco Rubio, Paul Ryan, Ron Johnson, kind of this new generation of Republicans who they see as willing to take on fundamental reform in government. And I think that you're a hard sell for them because you represent, a different era of republicanism. What can you say to those people to say that you're the right person to serve with them and to carry forward the message for the new decade that we're entering?
Who was the person to stand up when everybody else was running from it? Welfare reform was Tommy Thompson, myself. Who was the individual that cut taxes 91 times and saved the taxpayers in the state of Wisconsin $16.4 billion? Who was the individual that stood up and said, we got to build more prisons and take the bad guys off of the streets? I was that individual. I also was the individual who said regulations are too high. One of the first things I did is I changed the domiciliary laws so that corporations and businesses would incorporate in the state of Wisconsin, not Delaware. I changed the attitude, the atmospheres in Wisconsin the same way I would do in the United States. I think when you have somebody that's a proven leader and a vote getter, you want that person on your ticket. I'm that person, and I will lead very, very powerfully to change the system for the better, lower the government costs, reduce taxes, and make Wisconsin and the United States a better place to do business.
My final question. You've had a remarkable career. You served many years in the state legislature. You were the leader of the Republican minority during Governor Earle's administration. You were elected 4 times as governor of Wisconsin. Landslides. You then served in the cabinet of President Bush. And for the last decade, you've been very, very successful in business. You're even involved in one of the fields that I'm still messing around with, horse racing. You were named the monitor on racetrack safety. You were involved in a couple of companies that have developed significant medical advances. You've done all of those things. The obvious question that I think a lot of people have is, don't you at this point want to sit back and smell the roses? Instead, you're wandering into clearly a country that is deeply divided and a Congress that's almost dysfunctional. Why don't you sit back and sit on the beach and take Sue-Ann down there and see the grandkids every now and then and rest back and take a look at what you've accomplished as opposed to diving back into this hornet's nest? I guess it's the same question I asked earlier. Why do you personally want to do this when, if anybody has earned the right to sit back and not have to mess with anything anymore, it's you?
You're absolutely correct, Mark, except for one reason. The country's in terrible shape. This country's been good to me. I wouldn't have been able to accomplish what I've done without, having this opportunity. I want the same opportunities for my children and grandchildren. If I don't pick it up and know that I've got something to offer, can help change the direction of America and make it better, I don't think I could live with myself. I want to make sure that I build America the same way and allow my children and grandchildren to inherit that America the same way you and I did. They're not going to have that opportunity the way it's going right now. And I do not believe that we can accomplish that without the Republicans taking over control of the United States Senate.
Well, at that point, I think everybody in my audience agrees that if the Democrats keep one house here without regard to who the president is, we're not going to get anything done. And I think that that's everyone's highest priority. You're still he's thinking about running. Talking to you here, it's pretty clear you are running. Have you set a time that you're going to be making the announcement and when this is all going to get started, or essentially is it started? From what I can tell, you're running. Based on this interview, you're running.
Your conclusion is always very good, Mark.
All right. Thanks, Governor. Appreciate your joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Tommy Thompson, former governor of the state of Wisconsin.